Freaking out, man. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is luca-zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a dream. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Here we go, guys. Another Sunday night show. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM and also 104.1 FM with luca-zanna. I always say, if you want to change the machine, if you want to at least improve our politics, you must become part of it. And of course, I always say, I encourage you to run for everything. You know, as a regular person, I don't care if you're running for city council or congressman, doesn't matter. At least you should try. But more important, you should try to learn. We should try to learn. At the end, we get the government that we deserve. If we don't get involved, we don't want to know what's going on, guess what? Bad things will happen, and have been happening. This show is strange because, you know, we cover different things. We go from international events, we go from things that could be very local, also things that could be just regarding the state of Arizona. But the point is, doesn't matter what, doesn't matter where, the principle is always the same. We must know this machine called government, how it operates, and almost every part that sometimes we may completely underestimate. For example, in Arizona, we know very well, you know, we have a governor, then we have what you call, the state representatives, and then we have a state senator. But nobody really, at least most of the people, and I say myself, till a few years ago, we have really no idea, or at least not many people know very enough, about what means the Corporation Commission, the Arizona Corporation Commission. And there are people that they are elected for this position. And why is so important? Because, you know, as a people that we are here, we are facing a reality of life, paying bills, from the electric bill to the water bill to, you know, things that, even in the business aspect, because after all, you know, small businesses, they're going to have facing regulations. So we must understand that this is a very important position when it comes down to not just the general economy of our state, but also our basic lifestyle, you know. So anyway, that's the idea. So this is the purpose also of the show. I try always to encourage to learn new things. Now, I have a gentleman that I've been in contact the last few days, and is running for this very interesting position of Arizona Corporation Commission. His name is Jim O'Connor from Phoenix, Arizona. Jim, are you there?
I am, and good morning, Luca. Thank you for doing your show on educating we fellow citizens about our government and how to interact and engage with our government.
Exactly. And a little bit about you, because, you know, I'm always fascinated. You are an interesting gentleman out there. By the way, I would like to remind, please give your website out so people can check you out meanwhile.
The www.O'Connor, and that's OCONNORAZ.com.
Perfect. So
OConnoraz.com.
So you're a man that, I see that you had your life in business, and right now you could stay retired home if you wanted to, right? I mean, am I right or wrong? And you seem like you could enjoy your retirement right now.
Well, you're very correct, save for the fact that when I sold my company in 2001 and retired here to Scottsdale, Arizona, I was introduced to state and local political activity. It was something I was always interested in politics and always a Republican and supporting Republican candidates, but my focus, like most every American's, tended to be on congressional races and U.S. Senate races and, of course, the Super Bowl every 4 years with the presidential contest. And I love that stuff. I paid a lot of attention to it, did a lot of reading. But what I didn't get to fully appreciate until I was retired living here in Arizona And one of my state legislators actually got a hold of me in a phone call and invited me to become a precinct committeeman in the Republican Party. And at the tender age of 60, I began to explore, participate, and get engaged in that. And over the last 12 years, probably spent 40 to 50 hours a week devoting myself to conservative political activity at the city level, the county level, the state level, and certainly throughout the Republican Party.
All right. And, just to let you know, a little disclosure, I am no party at all. I am a complete independent, and I don't care. I'm glad that you're active. I don't care if you are Republican or Democrat. All I care about the issues, and I want to just be sure people understand that out there. And they already know, my listeners. I'm honestly very critical, especially with some part of the Republican Party. I don't want to say most of them, but I have my own personal issues, especially when, and this is, of course, something that doesn't really reflect on what you're trying to do here. You are running for a state position. But when I look at the big picture of what the Republican Party has been doing, even just the last couple of years, how they betray us, I understand why people are frustrated. I understand why I am frustrated, or I was frustrated when I was Republican. Just off the record, not off the record, just talking about politics now. What do you think when now, finally, we had, or at least the people voted for Republican complete Congress, Senate, and presidency, and still we had $1.8 trillion more in debt, and we still have Obamacare, and we still have all the different things that Obama was doing, at least most of them. What do you think about that?
Well, over the last 12 years, I learned a great deal more about our political parties and about civics in general than I ever knew from my formal education background or my sending checks to people running for Republican office. I naively believed that just because you were wearing a red T-shirt that you stood up for Republican Party values. And that could not be farther from the truth or reality. What I learned is that with respect to the Democratic Party, our state of Arizona is divided, as you probably well know, Luca, into thirds. 1/3 are independent, and 1/3 are Republican, and a little less than 1/3 are Democrat. There is an edge of Republicans over Democrats. But the state is divided into three. The challenge for the system and the people living under it, that is all of us, is we've got two major political parties traditionally, and that's, they call them left, that'd be the blue team, the Democrats, right, the red team, the Republicans. The people of the Republican Party, like these precinct committeemen, of which I am one, through our conventions over the years, continue to influence what is called the Republican Party platform, and it is truly the most conservative platform since we've had a Republican Party in the mid-1800s. The problem is that when people run for office, they register in a party. If they come into a red state like ours, even if they're independent or Democrat, they will often register as Republicans because they need to be Republican to get elected. The demographics are such that that's what they have to do. So they pretend to be Republican and they get elected pretending that they're going to stand by the principles articulated in our Republican Party platform. And as a matter of fact, many running for office and many Republicans serving in office are not the least bit familiar with the Republican Party platform because we, the people, have failed. We, the Republicans, have failed. And when I say failed, we have failed to learn how to hold our government representatives accountable to us.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is exactly my point. Sometimes, unfortunately, I see this from both sides. They always try to cover for their man. After all, whatever he does or whatever she does, it's one of us, and we must protect him. I mean, that's exactly the point. We put parties above principles, and that's, I think, how they're going to separate us and also control, because at the end of the day, I see the agenda is the same. I mean, I see no differences in many aspects at federal level, what they've been doing, just economically. Go ahead.
You just put your finger on why we've got the problems at the federal, at the state, at the local level today. Because the political elites, those are the electeds and those immediate people surrounding the electeds, rule and reign over the citizens.
Yeah. Please.
The independent registered voter, here's the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats are trying to attract independents because without the independents, they don't get their people into office. Republicans are doing the same thing. We are trying to appeal to independents. The dilemma we have in both camps is this. The independents are virtually unidentifiable. These are citizens that are so fed up with the reality that we see in City Hall, at the town council, on the local school board, on the county supervisors or commissioners, in the state legislature, with the governor. And again, it doesn't make any difference who the names are, so I'm not picking on anybody on a personality basis. But I will say for sure, they rule and reign over us because we can't figure out that the independent, which is over a third of the registered voters in our state, independent voter in Arizona is not a party. There is no identifiable platform. There is no ideology. So it's unidentified. So we are trying to appeal to a group that basically threw their hands up from a branding standpoint and said, I don't like Pepsi, I don't like Coke.
Jim,
and they stand to the side.
Jim,
yes.
Please, I would like to, you can explain better than me, of course. Can you explain us, please, exactly what is the function, or at least what type of role the Arizona Commission or commissioner is going to play when elected? What do they do? What is exactly this office for?
I would be very, very happy to do that. 105 years ago, when Arizona became a state, within our Constitution, there is an Article 15, which gave birth to the Arizona Corporation Commission. At that time, we had 3 commissioners or board members, as it were, elected by the general population at large. It is the 4th branch of government. You've got the Supreme Court, you've got the legislature, as you pointed out before, we've got the executive branch under the governor's control, and then we've created this Arizona Corporation Commission. Back 105 years ago, the principal activity was regulating railroads and later gas pipelines that came through the state, and later telephone landlines, not cell phone activity, but telephone landlines throughout the state. And we were also responsible for adjudicating, that is, like a judge, deciding what is a fair, just, and reasonable rate for citizens to pay monopoly public service utility companies for water and for power, electric power. And the role of the commission was broadened through acts of the legislature subsequent to the state's founding to include the licensing of every corporation that does business in the state of Arizona and the supervision and oversight of all investment advisory firms and securities brokerage firms. So the activity level for the now 5 commissioners in the year 2000, the legislature voted to move us from 3 commissioners to 5. It's a very big job. It's a very important job. And it's an almost invisible job. I jokingly say when I'm out speaking at candidate forums, running for corporation commissioner is a lot like running for librarian.
Yeah.
Everybody needs one in their town, but they not really sure everything that the librarian is responsible for. And that's the case with the corporation commission.
Yes, and that's very true. That's why I would say it's so important because, for example, I noticed when I received my internet bills or my phone bills or even the water bills, also, and I see sometimes increases, and one time, for example, I was talking about one of these providers. Out of the blue, their price went up, I don't know, a couple of dollars. And I said, how can you do that? I have a contract with you. They're supposed to be that price when I sign with you. Oh, this has been approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission. So this is my point. It's so many other things. Now, the point is it strange, though, as much as we're supposed to live in a free market or semi-free market, or at least for sure freer than many other nations, the reality when it comes down to utilities. For example, let's say, think about electricity, okay? In this case, I want to mention what we have here, at least UNS, okay? We are stuck with one. We don't have really free market. If we don't like the rates, if we don't like the service, there is no even way to compete. How comes that?
Well, these are monopoly businesses, and that by monopoly is one, and you don't have choice.
Oh, I know that.
So
I'm from Italy. I know monopoly.
The reason that came about is in the area of utilities like water and power. There is such an enormous upfront cost, hard dollar cost, to build the infrastructure. The piping, the plumbing, the sewage, the getting water to every new neighborhood that's developed throughout the state. That is huge cost. Billions of dollars of expense. And government itself chose at some point, and given the way government operates, I think somewhat wisely, to farm that work out to experts in their field. So water companies, power companies have their own engineering departments, their own accounting departments, and their own billing departments. They're very, very distinct and unique operations. So the businesses made a deal with government that if you, let's use your UNS or our APS, Arizona Public Service, or Tucson Electric down here in southern Arizona, they approached government, and government sat down with them, and they said, we'll take on the responsibility of getting you lit up or getting water to every faucet in this geographical jurisdiction. But in exchange for that, we want basically a non-compete clause. We want a monopoly position. And then government turned around and said, well, we will give you that, but we are going to regulate the rates that you are going to be charging our citizens for your service. So the government, in this case the Corporation Commission, is supposed to be that safeguard to protect the people and at the same time balance allowing these public service utility companies for water and power to have enough of a return to keep their plants and equipment updated, because I don't know how old a man you are, Luca, but I'm in my early 70s here already. Wow. And that went real quick, the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
so if you've got piping and meters and all kinds of equipment, 30, 40 years later, that stuff's got to be replaced.
Yes.
So there are costs.
Let me interrupt you 1 second. No, I completely understand the logic. There is only one point, why, if there is another corporation out there that say, you know what, we want to compete with that. After all, why just UNS? Maybe we can give another opportunity to at least have two choices. And for me, that's the only point. Maybe not many other corporations could compete on that level. Maybe it could be a double, let's say, two services at the same time. I understand that, for example, sometimes could be kind of hard to visualize to have two water pipelines, or maybe to have two electrical lines, or maybe, I don't know, but the point is there is still the technology that could be achieved, at least to leave the opportunity to bypass the monopoly and to say there is at least place for another one, because at the end the consumer, they should be able to choose. I tell you, I see a disgusting attitude when I talk to, for example, some of these providers. After all, if you don't like it, you die, or at least you don't like it, go solar. If you don't like our customer service, we don't care. Another, for example, aspect that I really advocate for that is the smart meters. Smart meters been proven scientifically that they completely can be a very dangerous to health, and also beside the privacy control aspect. And, at the point, if you don't want the smart meter, guess what? Right now we have the option to opt out, but meanwhile you need to pay an extra $25 or $30 a month just because of that. What do you think about that?
Well, back in 2011, as I mentioned, for the last 12 years, I've been very active on issues and on political candidates. I was one of the 100 and some odd that testified in 2011 before the Arizona Corporation Commission. At that time frame, we were down testifying against smart meters. And I personally heard over 2 days of hearing, and these hearings were all day long, supporting exactly what you said about smart meters. I wrote a letter to Arizona Public Service, my power company, and told them I do not want a smart meter on my house. And that's been the case.
Wow.
So
good for you.
They have honored that. So I've been engaged with that, and I do agree with you. One of the things that I plan on doing, if elected to this position, is to I want to hold those monopoly people that manage those enterprises into more accountability on issues like smart meters. What happens if you have if I'm government and I give you, Luca, a monopoly power over anything, maybe initially you will be somewhat bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and do a really good job. But 10, 20, 30 years later, you're going to get a little bit lazy at it. It's part of human nature,
yes.
Right? So what's happened is the utilities could make a mistake, an error of some kind in their work anywhere throughout their system. And all they have to do is show up at the Corporation Commission and say, oh, we spent $100 million there. That's not going to work. We've got to allocate. We've got to recapture that $100 million we lost on a bad idea, and we've got to spread that over our ratepayers. And I think there have been people in the past that just assumed that was the role of the Corporation Commission, is to say, oh, okay, let's let them. They put $100 million in an idea, and it didn't work out. The only place they can recoup it is from the ratepayers. I'd like if the executives at these utilities are earning millions of dollars a year in compensation, I'd like them working harder for their money and smarter for their money, and not passing those losses on every little thing they try or fail to try on to ratepayers. Now, as a separate page too, and you mentioned in your leading question earlier, was what about? Forgive me, it was a long lead-in, and you did have another idea wrapped in there. Could you bring that back to me, and I'll address that?
Well, I have different ideas. The point is, first of all, the point is this idea of no competition that, unfortunately,
yes,
is
thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, that triggered it. So right now we've got public service utility companies that can use as their source of power, solar, gas-fired, nuclear, hydro, they can either create, manufacture themselves, or purchase from others those power sources that they're alternatives. That's called a portfolio approach to balancing energy. So if you think for a moment, let's say you and I were running this utility company and coal-fired got too expensive, we could reduce our dependence on that substantially and then buy more, purchase more solar if that were the cheaper alternative. We'd have that flexibility. So there is a little bit of a free market idea in there, but we need a distribution company, which is what the public service utility principally is from the regulatory side. And we need to allow that company works its sharpest to buy power cheapest from whatever portfolio alternative sources they have to deliver us the cheapest energy at all times. So there is free market. If we go away from and go entirely deregulated and let people compete, then we've got to be very smart and very fair about how we balance the recapture or the reallocation of the cost, because they're going to be delivering their power to every household over the APS lines or UNS lines.
Yes,
right?
I understand.
So
and the problem exactly is this way. We have logistically one line only now for the distribution. My point is maybe more radical. I was trying to think maybe it could be realistic. Let's say at least you provide another company the opportunity to create an alternative also way to distribution, like you have two options at least. Listen, time is getting short. I know also you have an appointment. I would like to ask you one more thing. Why... You can, two reasons why voters, they should say, let me vote for Jim Connor and not for the competition out there. Jim O'Connor, excuse me. Why? Why voting for you? Give me two reasons.
The two I would have is this. Of the 5 currently serving corporation commissioners, all Republican, by the way, and the 3 gentlemen I'm running against for this office, I am the only individual that has a 42-year background in the investment industry. And to illustrate that, which might be reason number 2, I owned and operated an investment advisory firm in Los Angeles, California, before I sold it in 2001 to come to Arizona and enjoy my retirement. And during that, the operation of that business, I was called on by the California State Senate to serve as an expert advisor to them after the infamous Orange County, California bankruptcy back in 1994. My role on that committee, or as an advisor to that Senate committee, was to help in the drafting and rewrite of the permitted investment statutes in the state of California, similar to our Arizona revised statutes. And I did so. It was 18 months of pro bono service, meaning I worked for free for the public good. And we drafted and created, and the Senate approved, as did the House, and the governor signed it to change the state law that would preclude and prevent any subsequent bankruptcies as a result of investment shenanigans, which is exactly what occurred under the Orange County treasurer at that time. And for the last 24 and a half years, there's not been another government bankruptcy in the state of California as a result of investment shenanigans, I'll say. So I've got very unique experience that would be a great compliment to the commission. And I've also got the experience from that work and the wisdom over my 72 years that I will eagerly bring to serve the people of Arizona in this role.
Thank you, Jim. Listen, I appreciate your effort, especially to get involved, stay involved in this in this politics, because, never too late, it's never too early. The last time, I'd like to please remind the website where people can reach you and even support you if they choose so. Go ahead.
And when you go to www.o'connor, OCONNORAZ.com, you will see two buttons, a red one and a blue one. Please click on the red one and donate $5 to the Clean Elections campaign. I'm running under the Clean Elections Act, so if elected, I can say and do indeed mean that I will not owe anybody a favor.
Very good, Jim. I appreciate it. Good luck with your journey, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Jim O'Connor. As I said, this show is about everything from guns, rights, legislation, and also how to understand how we can improve our life. And one of the ways is to get involved, understand in what type of society we live. In Arizona, we have this figure. The Arizona Commission, Corporation Commission is very important. As I said, if you complain tomorrow why your electric bill went up, you must understand maybe you didn't pay enough attention who you elected or who you voted for. All right, little break. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Do not go away.
It is time. Get your Arizona Concealed Carry Permit now with Arizona Concealed Carry Permit by Zanna Enterprises, LLC. Become a more responsible and educated gun owner. Carry legally concealed in 35 states. Carry permitted in restaurants where alcohol is served. Learn where and how you can legally carry a firearm in Arizona. Learn where you can use deadly force. Where can you display your gun or not for self-defense? Learn how to deal with law enforcement while carrying a firearm. Learn how to be aware of your surroundings and how to avoid a confrontation. Buy your gun without waiting for a background check. Get your Arizona Concealed Carry Permit now. Go to www.azccw.us. Go to www.azccw.us. Free for single mothers and people with disabilities.
Here we go, guys and girls. This is luca-zanna. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM and also 104.1 FM. This is the second part of the show. The first part, you heard the interview. I like to try to educate each other. The idea to have, understand all the different figures of politics, of people that we're supposed to represent us, and we can elect, or maybe we can just become the elected. That's my idea. If you don't like the machine, be part of it. Go run for something. Now we would like to talk about something a little different. As I said, this show, it is not just a show about me talking, but also I like to know your opinions. And, I have my opinions. I'm not very shy about it. I'm pretty straightforward, honestly. You know exactly where I'm coming from. And, I like to know your side. I'd like to maybe think, try to find out your angle. The point is, I believe that, when we had President Trump as a president, we had a little bit of difference between Hillary Clinton. And that for me was one of the most important things. I could never thought about that anything else, but we cannot have another 8 years of disaster, and not just economically, this social, fascist agenda, because when you have like Obama, wasn't just socialism, there was fascism, there was the union between government and corporations. I'm talking also about, besides socioeconomics, also foreign policies. And one of the things really struck me with President Trump, or at least candidate Trump at the time, was the fact that he was so firm about the fact that, hey, we have no business to be in Afghanistan, we give enough money and time, and there is no a real plan, we just there. Honestly, we never had a reason to be there. It was completely wrong, because, the situation, if you want to look really at the 9/11 connection was with Saudi Arabia, was even with Afghanistan, but still, at least we need to get out of there. Great. Same story with Syria. We have no business to be there. There is a tweeter from 2013. He was so straightforward. Say, what are we doing there? And I said, wow, that's amazing. And the fact also that finally we had a man that he wasn't trying to antagonize Russia like Hillary was, even of course, was a show, because at the end, she was getting paid by Russia. Let's not forget the uranium one deal, okay? But finally we had somebody who wanted to try to bring some stability and try to get some, harmony. I really believe it. So that's one of the reasons really why I say, okay, great, we have a chance. I'm not saying Trump was perfect. I always had doubts on some issues, but at least on this one, I had no even thinking about it. Now, everybody knows the last events, what happened exactly a few days ago, at least last week, with Syria. Unprovoked attacks, in my opinion, and also according to right now different experts. And the fact, in general, as a rule, as even if truly Assad, Mr. Assad, President Assad, gas his own people, that makes no sense, by the way. You do that when, the American is leaving. Technically, you won this conflict, and you're going to start to gas your own people? Makes no sense. But still, even if that was true, what business do we have to be there and start a conflict or a military action that could have incredible consequences, especially when we think about it is not just Syria there is also Russia and China behind. And without any type of congressional approval, more important, and more important when we know that we have other nations around the world want to go to defend the children. Look in Africa, how many innocent children they've been enslaved or slaughtered or killed. But look also in Mexico. You don't need to go too far. I mean, seriously, there is so much. So my point is, I was very critical. I'm very critical about that. I'm very disappointed. So I wanted to bring somebody instead that I really respect. He's a great guy. And on top, a lot of things we share, also the same language, is an American, but also he speaks Italian very well because also he's Italian, it's an interesting guy. And his name is Giovanni, now he lives in Texas, and I know he's a big Trump supporter. Giovanni, are you there?
Yes, Gianluca, how are you?
All right, man. Listen, you heard my ramble, my rant, okay? You know what? You know very well. You follow my Facebook post. I don't need to tell you anything. Pretty much, more than I do what I think about all this story with Trump and Syria. But I wanted to bring the other side of the story. You're a smart guy, and I want to know. Okay, tell us why you think Trump did okay with this move. What's your opinion? Go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of things, a lot of points to consider on this. But I want to just go on the record that I do agree with you that the going over there and doing this attack was a little bit of a surprise for a lot of Trump supporters. And as you saw from a lot of the the media on Facebook, a lot of people said, I don't agree with this. And honestly, I did not agree with it either. But in looking, if you really examine the way that the attack was done, there was a lot of things that Trump was trying to do with this. Number one, it was to let the people of the United States and the people of the world know that attacks with chemical weapons on your own people are just not going to be tolerated. Now, as you mentioned, it doesn't make any sense that Assad would do that on his own population, especially when he had almost got rid of all of the rebel militia that was in the area. And again, like I said, I agree with that. That doesn't make any sense. But from a standpoint, from an international standpoint, I think that the attack, although it did not kill any civilians and the locations were predetermined, Russia was notified of it. They made sure that Russia cleared the area, the sky, what do you call it? They had like a military jargon for that to let them know that there was going to be planes doing the attack. Did
they send them like a registered letter, say, Russia, don't be there, please reply? What did they do? They just...
It was the generals actually after the strike, right after the strike, not even 45 minutes after the strike. They were on the news letting people know that the strike areas and the airspace in that area was supposed to be cleared, and Russia agreed with it before the strikes took effect. So there was an agreement over there for that happening. Now, even Assad's people that were there were able to eliminate things that were in the area that were of military assets. So what was bombed were 3 buildings, all of them that were tied to chemical storage, chemical manufacturing. So if you look at that, it really was a message more towards people who are thinking of ever using these type of weapons, which I would agree, and you would agree, is not something that we want to ever see, because there's no defense against that. The response to something like that should be pretty stern. And I don't think that Trump is that uninformed at this stage about the situation in Syria, what Assad is doing, and what Russia is doing. We know that everything in that area has a political and economical aspect to it. It has nothing to do with bringing democracy in the area. Like, I agree with you on that one, because there are so many areas in Africa, not only in Africa, but in other areas in the world that really need help, but nobody gives a crap because there's no. I'm sorry. Can you say crap?
Yeah, crap is fine. Think about, first of all, one thing. I want to go by logic. If you really want to start to send a message, I think one thing. First of all, before we put somebody like guilty, should be a trial. Should be not just some your personal opinion, or maybe some side that may be also manipulating you. Because after all, let's not forget these warmongers like Senator McCain, Lindsey Graham, and also on the outside Democrat side, there are different influences. They're trying to push for this conflict. This is the first time we saw both parties completely uniting, supporting Trump in this act, because we know very well that they've been trying to strike this fire of let's say, destroying Assad the last few years. And so before you go there, say, okay, I have enough evidence that Assad committed these crimes. They were just right there, United Nations, as much, what I think about the United Nations, but say independent examiners, convoys to try to really establish if there was really this attack or not. And that was not even allowed. That's the scary thing. Like when Trump said, hey, we take the guns first, and then we go to trial. What do you think about that, talking about the guns part? That freaked me out. Seriously. If Obama was saying that, we were ready to lock and load. There would be ready civil war. Seriously. Now, because Trump has said that, okay, I'm sure he didn't mean that. And if he meant that, he meant in a good way. That's the attitude we should not compromise. That's something we cannot compromise. And the same story with these people. Yes, you drop bombs that probably, hopefully, no Russians die and no Syrians die. Meanwhile, what do you think if China was dropping a bomb in San Diego or Texas, where you are? But, it just send us a communication to our generals. Don't worry. Just remove your troops from there. I just destroy a few buildings. That would be, honestly, an act of war, in my opinion. I would not allow any sovereign nation out there to attack us just because they think we committed. Do you remember the Waco, Texas, the Davidians? I wasn't in the country. Probably you, I don't know if you were around here. But, I think 70 or something innocent people, because they weren't all found innocent. No, beside, there was no trial. Civilians, and most of them babies, children, they were gassed by our own government. That was, under the Clinton administration. What? China or Russia should have bombed us then? After all, they were using gas. We were using gas on our own civilian with Waco, Texas. That's the point. Should we have a due process or not? Go ahead.
You should have a due process. But what is the due process when people use chemical weapons? And I understand your point. Like, you're saying, what if China starts bombing San Diego somewhere in the United States? Well, is there any use of this? Well, you can't use that as a, like I said, there is political and there is economical interest in this area. But at the same time, there are messages that are trying to be sent to people. Trump is, the reason why I like Trump is because he doesn't act politically like anybody that has been there ever. And there's a reason for that. He is testing waters. He is trying to bait people. He is trying to create tactical, flare bombs to distract the media, to distract the people.
I understand what you're saying. So, it may be very, strategic and all these things, but, at the end of the day, we're here, is there, and we're supposed to go by one guideline, okay? First of all, forget about common sense. That would be the best thing, in my opinion. But let's start with also our Constitution. After all these people took an oath to uphold it. Of course, for many of them, it's a joke. And even if there are different now type of laws that they think to try supersede the Constitution. But there is one basic thing that, unfortunately, since World War II, we didn't do anymore. And that's the declaration of war. Even if this wasn't a war, that could have started a war. So any military action of this gravity, in my humble opinion, we should go back to, hey, wait a second, what if a man or a woman that now is a president has all this power without, let's say, the check and balance of a Congress? After all, let's go back to the basic. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the U.S. Constitution grants Congress the power to declare war. Now, any military action, of course, the last 50 years or so, they've been just bypassed, Congress been ignored. But at this point, in my opinion, if Trump really wanted to do something that we should have little trust to retake America back and retake this Constitution back, and this Republic, he should have said, okay, I want to have all the options, but I'm just a man. Because what if tomorrow, Giovanni, we have another man, maybe another Obama, that, by the way, he was trying to do that, and we were all freaking out. I remember all the conservatives, when he was trying to bomb Syria, we were freaking out. You can do that. What if he has that unlimited power whenever he feels like it? Hey, somebody's using chemical weapons, I believe. No proofs, I believe. Let's start a war. That's scary. That's a power, very dangerous power to have just one man or woman. That's why our founders, they created this when the Constitution, Congress, we the people are the responsible if we want to go to war or not. That's my point at the end of the day. What do you think about that, not using the Constitution anymore?
As far as Obama was concerned, the entire 8 years of his presidency was all like that.
I know.
It was a constant war over there in Syria, and without the Congress's approval, that was just a constant.
And that's why we wanted Trump. That's why we wanted Trump.
Exactly, we wanted Trump. But look at the difference between what is going on right now. I don't know how to put this. When we were talking about the Trump saying, "Oh, we're going to, the due process is going to go away," listen very carefully to what he was doing at the time. He was trying to put all options on the table. Okay, he was telling people, put in the pot everything that you want, everything that you want. At the end of the day, everything that got filtered was a bump stock ban. Okay. When everybody was calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment, the marches going on for the schools and all that kind of stuff going on. And then Trump tweets out and says the Second Amendment will never be repealed. So I'm not worried about that. The bump stocks, in my opinion, are something stupid. But
let me tell you something about the bump stock since you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up. Stay one second with me. I understand, he wants to bring everything on the table, but there is two things that freak me out. It is not just the bump stock itself. Even, of course, I believe that we should have the right. By the way, also, he addressed it. It is not even about anymore Congress making a law, because after all, this bump stock, it's legal today, okay? Now, the president sent a memorandum to the useless Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and he told him, yes, now I decide that this is illegal. Now, think about, let it sink in, okay? A man, an executive, the president is the executive, does not legislate. Only Congress shall make laws. We agree with that. Now, don't forget that, yes, Obama did a lot of these things, but that's why we call him all the names we wanted to call him on the book. Okay? Executive orders make you a king, a little dictator, if this executive order they are used to legislate. Now, Trump did exactly the same thing. If you really believe that this bump fire stock is so dangerous, at that point, we need to go through Congress, and Congress can vote it. Instead, with a little pen and paper, as Obama said, he completely now is going to put an item that was purchased legally, by millions of Americans for recreational purpose, we know, because it's useless for real self-defense. But still, I have the right to buy it. Why should I now have 90 days to turn it in or become a felon, 10 years in jail, just because a man, in this case the president, wanted to create not even a law, a color of law. This is not law, it's a color of law. So that's my point. Now, if people say, okay, just for the bump fire, fine. Guess what? Now, next president, when he's going to say, by the way, gun owners do not need these 30 rounds magazines, and I think you should remove it to 10 or 8. All he needs to do, after all, another president already did it, little pen and paper, executive order. It can be done. That's what people I hope to understand. We need to follow the Constitution. President shouldn't make laws. And more important, now we create a precedent for the next president to maybe have another agenda. They maybe really believe the Second Amendment is not good for us. They may start to really cut it off without even going through Congress. What do you think about this, what I just said?
No, I agree that is it could turn into a snowball effect with every president coming after and doing whatever they please. I perfectly agree with that. But just because a president does an executive order and you have people that will say, okay, where this needs to be fought, you will definitely have Congress that will reject that. It can be repealed. You cannot. You're just not going to sit there and accept that. There's going to be demonstrations. Somebody comes and says, okay, the reason why a lot of the executive orders are done and people just sit there and don't do anything is because it's not affecting them personally at this point. A lot of patriots, a lot of people who firmly believe in the Second Amendment, I know everybody, we're itchy. We don't like what is going on. But trust me, if something goes the way that it creates a major problem, it will be confronted. Right now,
well,
from what I understand, and let's put it this way: I agree with you. I'm not saying I'm not defending Trump on this. Okay, I know what he's doing. I know there's tactical things going on, but a lot of people are not seeing this. But the due process is a sacrosanct process, and it should be followed. I 100% agree with you.
Well,
it paves the road for other presidents to do things that they want to do, and just creates a major problem.
As I said, at this point, I don't know if Trump is completely compromised. That means they own him. They tried at that point, he gave up, or maybe it was part of the plan and we never saw it. I don't know. All I know that I look at facts, and very sad at me because I really had hope. I'm not trying to hope that I'm grateful that now it's like that. I wish at least 80% of the things he said is doing them. And as I said, there are some things though I cannot compromise. And one of these, is the Second Amendment, of course, also this foreign policy that is not just, our billions and trillions of dollars that we don't have. I mean, think about how much cost us this show in Syria. Every bomb was what, $1.8 million. I mean, a couple $100 million that we have people, for example, in part of America that they don't even have running water. I mean, children they are drinking water with lead and chemicals. We could have used that somewhere else. But as I said, at this point, we'll see what happens. But listen, I appreciate you, man, because you're great, and even of course on this one we may have a little disagreement. At least, we try to do the right thing. We believe that we want to do the right thing, and I hope we can help each other to because I'm really concerned sometimes, especially in the patriot movement, people that they have completely, they become more almost like personality cult. We love the country. That's for me the most important thing. And the man, the president, is just a man. Is not our final goal. I believe that it could be a good person to achieve this goal. But we want to stay focused. The focus is the mission is defend America. Defend this country, not just idealize any man. On the other side too, I feel sorry when I see these Democrats completely losing reason when you try to bring evidence about Hillary Clinton that she should be in jail. I mean, what do you think about? She's still jumping around. I mean, why not Trump send a memorandum to Jeff Sessions, say, Jeff Sessions, enforce the law right now, or you're going to go leave the job? Why?
Well, we did see yesterday actually, there was a request made to Sessions to start investigation on Comey, Hillary, Lynch, and McCabe. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that, and I hope it's going to go through all the way, because that's about time, don't you think?
Well, look at that. Look at that, and look at the timing of all the stuff that's going on right now. There's going to be some major false flag going on, because there's a lot of things that are being discovered. A lot of things that were known. A lot of things that were tied to Weiner's laptop that the New York Police Department found that have released to Giuliani. Look at Giuliani joining the team now, the legal team that's going to process Hillary Clinton. You know, the 4 people I just mentioned before. What about all that almost 1,000 pounds of dynamite that was just robbed from Pennsylvania?
Wow.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are happening right now. It's coming to a juncture, and it's not going to be good.
All right.
You know, my honest opinion of what is about to happen is not very good.
All right.
I feel it in the pit of my stomach. And not only me, many, many other people.
Listen, Giovanni, thank you very much. Listen, we're at the end of the hour. I appreciate your input, and I'll see you on Facebook. By the way, then you'll tell me, I didn't have time. I want you again. Maybe we can talk just about guns. I know you got the Scuddy upper and the Scuddy lower recently. I'd like to know your feedback, okay? Be in touch and talk to you soon.
All right.
Thank you, my friend. All right, guys. Today was pretty much today. Don't go away. Stay there 1 second. I'm closing. Today was it. I appreciate your input. As I said, I want you on the show. We can discuss here about everything. And if you want to come here, just send me an email. zanna@zanna.us, or go to lovegunsfreedom.com. Now, meanwhile, don't forget, we are really under attack. I mean, seriously. I saw on Amazon all my reviews on Zanna Coffee. Amazon just removed them. I had more than 7-8 positive 5-star reviews, and Amazon Bank just blast them out. I mean, algorithms, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know why. Maybe because my little coffee, Zanna Coffee, one of the label has a gun on the front label. Maybe, I don't know. I'm starting to get into that mode, I really believe. And eBay, start to remove items they don't like because it's ridiculous. So I really need your help, okay? If you can support me, I appreciate it. This is more important to support the show, because after all, that's the way I promote the show and I support the show. I don't ask for a sponsorship, because I know I want to keep complete freedom of speech on the show. So go to www.zanna.us. You can see the different things I do for a living. You can get my Zanna Coffee. You can download any of my songs, or, just look at the CCW classes, or go to ar15shop.us. Don't forget my erotic poems book, okay? Perfectly Crazy, on Amazon, of course, but you can find it there. All right, guys, God's willing, I'll talk to you next Sunday. Stay there, stay safe. Bye.